When I tell someone I'm a sculptor, the most common response is, "Oh, what kind of stone statues do you make?" It's an understandable question. Much of the history of sculpture is statuary. And though I don't make stone statues, my work is connected to that history. This is one of my favorites. It's like going through airport security with children. Movement and gesture have long been formal tools utilized to tell stories and convey emotions in art. The introduction of contrapposto is an important part of that history. The gesture indicates a between moment, alluding to both past and future movement. The next time you're frustrated waiting on something, just remember it took thousands of years to get from here to here. Discounting automatons, actual mechanical movement in sculpture is widely considered to show up in the early 20th century. Naum Cabot, Marcel Duchamp, and Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, seen here from left to right, are variously seen as the frontrunners. A couple of decades later, on the heels of Dada, is Swiss kinetic sculptor Jean Tinguely, who put an electric motor on anything, from a feather duster to a toilet. An early and lasting influence on me, I was particularly taken with his ideas of sculptural non-materials, movement, sound, light, smell, and how these can be used in physical space. His most famous work, the 27-foot-tall assemblage Homage to New York, incorporated a player piano, a weather balloon, a go-kart, a bathtub, bicycle wheels, and a dressograph, and numerous other cast-off objects. Looking here like the aftermath of the Hindenburg disaster, the sculpture purposely set itself ablaze and destroyed itself in the courtyard of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Klamauk perhaps best encapsulates his work for me, officially described by the Tinguely Museum as a, quote, driving, noise-making, smoking, stinking, firecracker exploding tractor. It was a true multisensory experience. This notion of non-materials like sound crossed with movement as a device to evoke emotion or narrative lies at the heart of my own work. My inspirations are far-flung. Poetry and humor famously exploit our presumptions about language, conveying meaning in creative ways. I aspire for my own work to function on similar principles. The cams, gears, motors, and levers are left exposed so that through their honesty they might masquerade as something else. In that way, the work celebrates its own falseness, becoming all the more real for it. When you consider a typewriter as just a typewriter, you begin to see it can evoke both the romance of storytelling and the banality of clerical work. You can see that it has nothing to do with looms, or everything, and weaving has nothing to do with the back and forth exchange of gestures and words between two people as they craft meaning through conversation. The mechanism I built to interact with these typewriters is upfront in its reference to the carillon or music box. Casting a wider metaphorical net, you capture references including the ensemble, choir, orchestra, player piano, pipe organ pedals, ambient music, and the element of chance so deftly addressed by John Cage. The roots of my current work reach far into the past. Landscape and myths of the ancient world have crept to the forefront as a catalyst in the past several years. The relationship between place and narrative, between landscape and myth, have taken a central role in the studio. Fields of plenty as a representation of paradise extend from the reed fields of the Nile Delta in Egypt through the Elysian fields of Greece into Norse mythology and beyond. The long and interconnected lineage of myths and images resonates with my own upbringing in rural America, particularly my youth in the grain belt of the Midwest. Not exactly paradise in my book, but a beautiful and sometimes stoic landscape that is rich with its own complexities, histories, and striking symbolic vistas. Reflecting again upon the development of contrapposto, it is compelling to consider that in Western art, that is the first time the body, through gesture and implied movement, is seen to express a psychological disposition. An emotion or state of mind is evoked. And so I find myself engaging that line of inquiry. In what ways can gesture and movement, separate from human form, express or engage the psychological? The repetition, intricacy, and nuance of mechanical linkages allows for the inclusion of sound as a cultivated and calculated byproduct. Nothing can fill a space the way sound does. The fact that the sound and motion are from the same source, the same mechanism, underscores the physicality of the sculpture. It does not pretend to exist in an imagined space, but insists upon its presence in your space. The ancient world surfaces again here as Odysseus and his men encounter the sirens. Famously tied to the mast of his ship while his men have wax stuffed in their ears, Odysseus endures the song of the sirens but does not fall prey to them. one of the most famous examples of beauty that is horrific or horror that is beautiful, a fascinating dichotomy. Applying sequenced motion to rigid materials can allow for an apparitional quality. Solid wood or steel can appear fluid. These moving forms are additionally read in the context of the sound they create, a symbiotic relationship where the sound informs the object informs the sound. All that moving and squeaking is to assert not just the physicality of the sculpture, but also its temporality. The most central tenet of my work is to point back at the viewer via our own temporal logic, to underscore the present moment in an attempt to address the utter elusiveness of every other moment. Movement allows unique opportunities to address the unseen in sculpture. We see and feel the results of gravity, but we don't see gravity. We see and feel the results of the wind, but we don't see the wind itself. We don't see sound, we hear it and feel it. And then there's time having its way with all of us, always unseen. So, those are some of my stone statues. If you'd like to see this one moving, I hope you'll join me at the Knoxville Museum of Art on May 6th, all through the summer. Thank you.